The story begins at a gathering. As soon as the protagonist, Amy, walks in, she can't wait to share a strange incident with everyone. On her way to the gathering, Amy was talking to her husband, Kevin, on the phone. Suddenly, she couldn't hear his voice anymore, and, without warning, her phone screen shattered. After hearing Amy's story, everyone joked around to comfort her. However, Amy suggested it might have something to do with the comet that's currently approaching Earth. But the topic didn't last long. Beth quickly changed the subject and showed everyone her new invention, a pure natural essential oil extracted from various flowers. Beth mentioned that the essential oil could help people relax, but under Mike's persistent questioning, she admitted that it contained a small amount of anesthetic. After discussing the essential oil, Beth picked up a potted green plant from the windowsill. Shaoli mentioned that she had bought it from a Galaxy store. Beth expressed how much she liked the plant. At this moment, two men entered the doorway. The bearded man was Beth's husband, Desio, and the other was Amy's husband, Kevin. While Amy and Kevin were talking, Amir arrived with Lori. As soon as Lori entered, she took off her coat, revealing her impressive physique. Lori greeted everyone with a light hug for Amy, and the group exchanged pleasantries. Kevin and Lori, who hadn't seen each other in years, also started chatting. By this point, everyone invited to the gathering had arrived, a total of 8 people: Amy, Kevin, Hugh, Beth, Lee, Mike, Lori, and Amir. Soon they all sat together, eating and chatting. During dinner, the group discovered through conversation that none of their phones had a signal. Inevitably, the discussion turned to the comet. Amy, who had done some research on the subject, couldn't help but share a report she'd read about comets. According to the report, when a comet once passed near Earth, many strange incidents occurred. Some people accidentally entered the wrong houses, while others mysteriously got lost. Even more bizarre, Amy recounted a story about a woman who called the police, claiming that the man in her house wasn't her husband. The police didn't believe her until the woman admitted that she had killed her husband with her own hands the day before, meaning the husband, who was alive, must be an imposter. Amy's story had everyone laughing, agreeing it was a great twist. The conversation then shifted to their personal lives. Everyone had their own share of misfortunes and joys. Mike, for instance, had been a TV star and acted in a very famous show, but his temper was notorious. Especially after drinking, he became an outright danger to those around him. Amy, on the other hand, had once been on track to become San Francisco's most famous dancer. However, due to a twist of fate, she was replaced, leaving everyone lamenting the loss of her promising future. At this point, Hugh suddenly took out his phone, and everyone noticed that his phone screen was also shattered. The conversation once again shifted back to the comet. Hugh remembered something his brother had once told him. If strange things happened during a comet's passing, he should call him immediately. Hugh's brother was a theoretical physicist who had published many profound theories. Given the current situation, Hugh felt it was necessary to give his brother a call. While everyone was discussing this, the room suddenly went dark, a power outage. In the pitch black, everyone cried out in alarm, but thankfully, candles were quickly lit, and someone even brought out glow sticks. As they played with the blue glow sticks, someone noticed something strange. The entire neighborhood was in darkness, except for one house, which was brightly lit. The group, holding their blue glow sticks, stepped outside and confirmed that there was indeed one house brightly lit amidst the surrounding darkness. Looking up, they saw the comet streaking across the sky, its long tail trailing behind. Back in the room, Beth couldn't help but ask, why does that house still have power when everywhere else is dark? In response, some suggested it might be a generator, while others guessed it could be solar power. However, these explanations didn't convince everyone. Hugh decided he needed to see for himself. Amir volunteered to accompany Hugh. The two promised to return within 10 minutes and took their blue glow sticks to signal their location. But as time passed, Hugh and Amir did not return as promised. This made everyone uneasy, and they couldn't help but discuss the comet again. As they were talking, something unexpected happened. There was suddenly a loud banging on the door from outside, and everyone was filled with terror. Kevin grabbed a baseball bat and approached the door. He lifted the curtain but saw nothing. Mike managed to fix the generator, and light returned to the room. Just as the group was still shaken, another noise came from the door. Hugh and Amir had returned. Both were clearly panicked. Hugh had blood on his forehead, while Amir set down a white box. It was clear that both men were disoriented. Mike opened the box Amir had brought back. Inside, there was a ping-pong paddle and an envelope containing photos of everyone, with numbers written on the back. The sight of these items sent everyone into a panic, and they couldn't help but ask what Hugh had seen. Finally, Hugh spoke up. He had gone to the house and saw a table with dinner set for 8 people. As everyone looked at each other with raised hands, they understood Hugh's implied message, but none of them believed something so absurd could be true. Instead, they began to question whether it had been Hugh who had been banging on the door earlier, thinking he might have been trying to scare everyone. Hugh vigorously tried to defend himself, but the group descended into chaos. However, they soon calmed down because, no matter how they tried to explain it, they couldn't rationalize the strange photos. Hugh decided to write a letter and send it to that house. As he was writing, a noise came from outside again. Kevin, holding the baseball bat, walked over and discovered a piece of paper taped to the door. He picked it up and read it. To his horror, the message on the paper was identical to the words Hugh had just written in his letter. A chilling sense of dread spread among the group. The scene shifted. Beth and Lee were tending to Hugh's wound. Between 2 bandages, Lee chose a simple cloth bandage. Meanwhile, the others were gathered around Amy, analyzing the photos with numbers on the back. Amy carefully matched the numbers to each person's name. Through comparison, she made a disturbing discovery. Only Amir's photo appeared to have been taken recently, and the background was their very own room. This eerie revelation unsettled everyone once again. After the group dispersed, Amy quietly spoke with Kevin. She revealed that the numbers written on the back of the photos were identical to the ones in her notebook. This discovery deeply unsettled both of them. Kevin, unable to comprehend what was happening, asked, "How is this possible?" Just then, as the group relaxed slightly, they gathered in the living room once more. They decided to split up. Some would stay behind while others went outside to investigate. 4 of them grabbed blue glow sticks and stepped out into the night. As they walked, Mike suddenly noticed a house up ahead. However, when the group approached, they were so terrified by what they saw that they immediately turned and ran. After only a few steps, they saw 4 figures standing in front of them, each holding a red glow stick. To their shock, the 4 figures were themselves. Both groups froze for a moment, then bolted in opposite directions, with Mike's group sprinting back to the house. When they frantically recounted what had happened, those who had stayed behind were left speechless. Hearing that the other group was holding red glow sticks, Hugh glanced at the box where they kept the glow sticks. While the others were discussing, Hugh and Amir whispered to each other in a corner. Suddenly, Beth remembered something. Hugh's brother had left a book in the car. Without hesitation, Hugh rushed out to retrieve it and quickly returned to the room, holding the book. When they saw the book's title, everyone was stunned. Luckily, there were also some notes inside, written by Becker. One of them mentioned Schrodinger's cat. With Hugh's explanation, the group quickly grasped the concept. Amy suddenly remembered that when they left the house, they had indeed passed through a strange area, one that was much darker than the rest. It was only after crossing that area that they saw the other house and encountered another version of themselves. After discussing, they realized that when the comet arrived, they had become like the cat in the box, existing in a state between being and not being. However, by stepping outside, they had triggered multiple realities to emerge. Now they understood, the house across the street was another version of their own reality. As they debated what to do next, the hot-tempered Mike made a drastic decision. He planned to go on the offensive and eliminate the other versions of themselves. Everyone thought Mike had lost his mind, but his next words jolted them awake because they had no idea whether the other version of Mike had been drinking. Thinking about how uncontrollable Mike became when drunk, everyone felt an impending sense of doom. Even so, they rejected his aggressive plan. But Mike knew himself well. He wouldn't just sit around and wait for the drunk version of himself to come knocking. To intimidate the other version of himself, he decided to write a secret letter and send it across. Meanwhile, Amy and the others were still discussing how to survive this crisis. Lee, who had just woken up, seemed confused by everything that had happened. But when the group expressed concern, she remained calm, simply saying it might be because of the essential oil. This immediately triggered a realization. Beth had used that bottle of essential oil earlier. Suspicion quickly spread. Was it possible that Beth had drugged them all, sending them into some kind of hallucination? Beth, feeling accused, grabbed the essential oil and pointed out that she had only used a tiny amount, proving that she hadn't drugged anyone. The tension in the room gradually eased. But just as things started to settle down, Beth picked up the potted plant again and absent-mindedly asked, "Where did you buy this?" Lee replied without much thought, "At the Galaxy store." Hearing this eerily familiar conversation, Amy remained outwardly calm, but inside, waves of anxiety crashed over her. Meanwhile, Hugh and Amir had slipped into a separate room. They each pulled a red glow stick from their pockets. But when they glanced at the unopened box of red glow sticks on the table, realization struck. They weren't in their original reality. Understanding the danger, the two began plotting their escape. At the same time, Mike, still carrying a blue glow stick, returned. He claimed to have delivered the secret letter to the other house. But something was off. According to him, he had been outside for 40 minutes. According to Kevin, he had only been gone for 5. Both men looked at each other, completely confused, neither realizing the full implications of what had just happened. Mike, unfazed, returned to the dining table. And then he started drinking. In his mind, if he was going to face a drunk, violent version of himself, he might as well become one. 2. Meanwhile, Hugh and Amir quietly slipped away from the house, taking the photos and the book with them. Their sudden escape finally made the others realize the Hugh and Amir who just left weren't the original ones. At the same time, they also realized something even more unsettling, for other people had left the house before. Kevin, determined to check the situation outside, started heading for the door. But Amy grabbed him, refusing to let go. A sinking feeling in her gut told her they must not leave the house. The scene shifts. Amy and Mike are deep in discussion, strategizing their next move. Suddenly, the lights go out again. Just as they light the candles, a loud crash echoes from outside. Grabbing their blue glow sticks, they step out to investigate. What they find sends chills down their spines. Hugh's car window has been smashed open. Seeing this, Amy makes a decision. She goes to check her own car. Reaching into the passenger seat, she pulls out a ring and slips it onto her finger. Just then, she turns around. Kevin is standing right there. Their eyes meet. They step forward and embrace in silence. Breaking the moment, Amy asks, "Did anything go missing from Hugh's car?" Hearing Amy's question, Kevin froze. Seeing his reaction, Amy also froze. In that instant, they both realized the Kevin in front of her and the Kevin outside weren't from the same reality. Panic rising in her chest, Amy rushed back inside. To confirm her suspicion, she tested her husband. She held out her hand. Kevin reached out and showed her a ring he had just picked up. But he had no reaction to it. That was the final proof Amy needed. This Kevin wasn't her Kevin. At that moment, Hugh and Amir re-entered the house. Hugh immediately began recounting his experiences, but everything he said, the previous Hugh had already said before. Something was wrong. Then Lee noticed something off. The bandage on Hugh's forehead, before it was a cloth bandage, but now it was a plastic one. Hugh and Amir exchanged a look. Reaching into their pockets, they pulled out 2 glow sticks, one red, one blue. They had just come from a house filled with red glow sticks. And in another house, Hugh had written a note, but before he could deliver it, another Hugh had already left the exact same note on their door. At this moment, Amy picked up the 2 notes. A terrifying truth unfolded. Neither Hugh had managed to deliver their note. Yet both had received one, which meant at least 4 different realities had already been created. Then, an even more horrifying thought struck them. How many versions of themselves were still wandering outside. To confirm whether they were still in their original reality, the group decided to mark the house. They took their own photos, rolled dice to assign random numbers, and wrote the numbers on the back of their pictures. Since Amir had no photo, he took a new one on the spot. But as soon as they finished, they realized something chilling. Some other version of themselves had already thought of this. To reinforce their system, they placed a random object inside the box as an additional marker. Only then did everyone breathe a sigh of relief, except for Amy. She stared at the 2 sets of numbers, her face pale. Then, she turned to Mike, her voice shaking. "I figured it out." Through comparing this reality's numbers with another, she made a bone-chilling discovery. Aside from Lee and Beth, who had never left the house, everyone else in this reality was a visitor. At that moment, Amy realized something even worse. The dark zone outside was like a roulette wheel. Anyone who passed through it was randomly sent to another reality. And once they left, they could never return to their original reality. As Mike and Amy debated whether to stay or leave, another note was suddenly slipped under the door. Hugh picked it up. The message mentioned something about Mike and Beth. But the problem was, it came from a different reality. Mike froze as he read the words. Before anyone could react, Hugh snapped. He let out a furious roar, his voice shaking with rage. Mike had a secret another version of him had exposed. Mike and Beth had been having an affair. The room exploded into chaos. People shouted. Accusations flew. The tension was unbearable. But in the middle of it all, Amy silenced them with a single sentence. "None of us are from the same reality." The room fell into stunned silence. And then, one by one, people started confessing. Each person named the random object in their version of the box. And with every answer, it became painfully clear. This house was a reality of strangers. Indeed, everyone present came from different realities, but even so, there was no way to calm the anger of the repairman. After knocking Mike down with a punch, he was dragged away by the crowd. Just then, a figure rushed in and began to beat Mike on the ground. Some people, taking advantage of the chaos, stripped the laborers' clothes. Amy then heard a sound coming from the door. She walked over and saw that another repairman had posted a note on the door. Looking at the chaotic room, Amy quietly walked out. Outside the house, after passing through the darkness, she opened a box. The random item inside the box was a small bear. Inside the house, Amy, who was hot-tempered, walked into the next reality. People in the house were arguing. In the next reality, Mike and Kevin were tied up. Another reality, and the arguments continued. Amy looked up at the comet, then came to a brightly lit house. This is a warm and beautiful scene, with everyone talking and laughing. The other Amy is gently lying in Kevin's arms. As they chat, a sudden noise comes from outside. They go out to check and find someone has smashed a car window. Seeing this, the good version of Amy decides to check her car. Just as she reaches for her ring, Amy covers her mouth and nose from behind, then throws her into the trunk. Amy straightens her clothes and walks into the brightly lit house. Facing the concern of everyone, she appears a bit awkward and can only show Kevin the ring to shift their attention. She also mentions that the comet outside is beautiful. Hearing this, everyone heads to the balcony to watch. At that moment, the lights inside the house suddenly go out, then immediately light back up. Throughout the entire process, everyone remains calm, quietly appreciating the comet. Suddenly, the door is pushed open by the awakened good version of Amy. Amy chases after her, grabs a toilet lid, and hits her with it. Then, she throws the good version of Amy into the bathtub. In the rush, her ring falls to the floor, so she can only take the ring from the good version of Amy's hand. However, as soon as Amy walked out of the bathroom, she collapsed onto the floor. The next day, Amy woke up from her deep sleep and hurried to the bathroom. When she saw that it was Beth pushing the door open, she finally let go of her worries. Walking out of the house, Kevin saw Amy hand him the ring she had picked up from the bathroom. Amy took the ring and secretly hid it in her palm. Kevin happened to receive a phone call, though it was unclear what was said on the other end. Kevin's gaze toward Amy instantly filled with suspicion. At this point, the film abruptly ended. The night the comet appeared was like a movie full of wonder, much like The Man from Earth. Watching it left one with endless philosophical thoughts.